A bear fell in love with a beautiful girl and became so madly obsessed with her that when she was about to get married, he picked her up dressed as a bride and took her away. Then he treated the girl with such cruelty that everyone was shocked to see it. The bear ruined the girl's life in a way no human could have. Let's start this story. Today, M was sitting as a bride in a red wedding dress, looking stunning. There was no doubt that she looked like a princess. Looking at herself in the mirror, she was dreaming about her future life with her husband. Meanwhile, two red eyes were also watching her beautiful reflection. Right next to M's room was the bear's room, and the wedding items had blocked the way, but somehow the door to the bear's room opened and he walked into M's room. Making strange and eerie sounds, he began to stare at Malika. She, dressed as a bride, was tucking her hair behind her ears when she saw the bear standing behind her in the mirror. Her eyes widened in shock. This bear was her friend. She started walking toward the bear to show him affection. She had been with him since childhood. But as soon as she moved toward him, the bear suddenly attacked Malika. Before M could react, the bear committed such an act with Malika that your hair would stand on end. The whole neighborhood gathered, and everyone was horrified. This incident happened near Firozabad, where a man named Sajid lived with his family. Sajid owned a small shop in the market where he sold children's clothes to make a living. 10 years ago, Sajid had come to Pakistan from Afghanistan and started living here. He had brought his wife and a daughter with him, who was just an infant at the time. After years of hard work and labor, Sajid Khan finally managed to build a clothing shop. The clothes were so good and unique that he made a decent profit. Sajid's wife, Mariam, was also skilled at sewing nice clothes. Together they had built a stable life, and their house had everything they needed. But then, one day, the government issued an order to demolish all unregistered shops. The demolition began, including Sajid Khan's small shop where he sold clothes. Large cranes arrived and demolished the shops of all the shopkeepers. That day, Sajid suffered a loss of millions. All his clothes were covered in dirt. The police even arrested him because he had misbehaved with them. After spending 2 days in the police station, when he was released, a close acquaintance handed him a bundle of clothes wrapped together and said, "Look, Sajid Mien, these are the clothes I managed to save from your shop after you were taken away. The rest were taken by the police." Sajid was deeply troubled, his eyes filled with tears. He had suffered a loss of millions. His heart sank, but he kept his strength for the sake of his wife and daughter. He returned home with the clothes. Mariam was inconsolable, crying her heart out. Now their future seemed uncertain, as all their savings were lost with the shop. They began to worry about how they would meet their expenses. Despite making efforts, Sajid Khan couldn't find another shop or gather the money needed to restart. He became very anxious. One day, while wandering in the market, he saw a man who had a black bear. The man was making the bear perform tricks, and people were happily giving him money. So the man said to himself, "What if this bear?" Seeing this, Sajid Khan made up his mind to earn money by making a bear perform tricks. He approached the man and expressed his desire to buy a bear. The man had some bear cubs at home. He sold one of the cubs to Sajid for a low price. Sajid was overjoyed to have such a good bear cub for so little money. When he brought the bear cub home, Sajid's daughter, Malika, was frightened. She exclaimed, "Abu, why have you brought this bear? It's so terrifying. I'm scared of it." "What if it bites me?" Sajid reassured her, saying, "No, dear, this is a tame animal. We will train it. It will become our friend." Initially, Malika remained scared of the cub, but gradually her fear faded. She started taking care of the bear herself. She began helping her father train it to perform tricks. Time passed quickly. Sajid Khan wasn't earning as much as before, but whenever he went to his neighborhood or fairs to show the bear's tricks, people would give him good money. Thus, his livelihood started to run smoothly. Gradually, Malika stepped into the threshold of youth, while the bear continued to grow. Every day, when Amalika took food to the bear, it would stand on its hind legs, raise its front legs, and place them on Amalika's shoulders, standing upright like a human. By now, it had grown much taller than Amalika. Seeing it stand like this made Amalika laugh, and she grabbed its feet to help it walk. Holding its hands, she taught it how to walk like a human and perform tricks. Afterward, she would sit beside the bear and feed it with her own hands. The bear had become very attached to her. One day, she was sitting beside the bear with its head resting in her hands. Its large, sharp teeth, capable of crushing human bones in an attack, were clearly visible. Amalika's mother had always kept her distance from the bear. Even now, when she saw her daughter sitting so close to it, she became nervous. A strange thought crossed her mind, and she angrily called out to her daughter, saying, "Amalika, this is an animal, a beast. It has no intellect or conscience. Don't go so close to it. Just give it food and come back." But Amalika paid no heed to her mother's words and replied, "It won't harm me. It's my loyal animal." One day Amalika was alone at home. The bear was also tied up at home since Sajid hadn't taken it out to perform tricks that day. Amalika finished the household chores and went to the bathroom to take a bath. While she was bathing, she heard the sound of a chain breaking. It seemed like the bear's chain had snapped. She dismissed it as her imagination and continued bathing. After some time, she heard a noise outside the bathroom door. A faint growling sound was heard, the same distinctive sound that the bear often made. Amalika froze. As the next moment the bear stood on its hind legs and started knocking on the door. Amalika shouted, "Move away from here! What are you doing? Do you want to break the door? Don't you feel ashamed? Step back, I'll be out in a moment." She scolded it while speaking, but the bear kept knocking on the door to the point of almost breaking it. Amalika quickly tied up her hair and prepared to come out, but the door had already been broken. She screamed in fear, shouting at the bear to leave. "Get out of here! Don't you understand what I'm saying? Leave! I'm ordering you!" But the bear continued moving toward her. At that moment, if Amalika's father hadn't arrived, who knows what would have happened. When Amalika's mother entered the house and heard her daughter screaming, she panicked and ran toward the bathroom. Seeing her daughter screaming and the bear near her, she was horrified. Usually terrified of the bear, that day, Amalika's mother showed great courage. She grabbed a stick lying in the yard and began hitting the bear. The bear screamed in pain and immediately backed off. Amalika's mother then shut the bathroom door. Sajid quickly tied the bear in a corner of the house and beat it severely with a stick. Amalika, visibly shaken, came out and hugged her mother, crying profusely. Amalika's mother said to Sajid, "Enough is enough. Sell this bear. It was about to attack our daughter. What if it kills us one night while we're sleeping?" Sajid loved the bear deeply. Amalika too had some attachment to it. She pleaded with her mother, saying, "No, Mom, don't do that. Maybe it thought I was in trouble, so it came to help me." This incident too was ignored and forgotten. Amalika had stepped into the threshold of youth, and because of this, marriage proposals started coming to the house frequently. One day, a good proposal came from the city. The marriage proposal came for Amalika. The boy's family belonged to Sajid Khan's community. The boy ran his own shop, and there was no flaw in the proposal. For this reason, when they brought the proposal, Sajid immediately agreed. Amalika was overjoyed because, as a child, she had met Nasir once. He was a well-educated boy who ran his own business. Certainly, he had grown even more handsome than before. Amalika's engagement was fixed with Nasir. Happily, Amalika took some sweets, sat near the bear, fed him the sweets, embraced him, and excitedly told him, "My marriage is fixed. In a few days I will leave you all and move to the city. There I'll start a new life with my husband." As she spoke, the bear spit out the sweets he had eaten and roared angrily. He threw the food and water near him onto the ground. Enraged, he stood on his hind legs and scratched the walls with his claws. This small room was specifically built for the bear. Until today, the bear had never been seen this angry. With his claws, he scratched the walls so hard that it collapsed. Amalika stepped back in fear. She understood that the bear wasn't happy about the news of her marriage and was displeased with it. She tried to calm him, saying, "Don't be angry, don't be upset. I'll come here to meet you all." But the bear had lost control. Once again, Amalika's mother angrily looked at Sajid and said, "We'll manage somehow. Even if I have to work in people's homes washing dishes, I'll do it. But sell this bear. Don't you see how it behaves? If one day a bigger incident happens, will that be fine?" Hearing his wife's words, Sajid Khan was forced to think about it. However, with his daughter's wedding date fixed, his attention shifted away from the bear. Sajid was very happy about his daughter's wedding. He became busy preparing for the marriage. The day finally arrived when Amalika sat as a bride. Today her groom was coming to take her. She was dressed in a beautiful red bridal outfit and was admiring herself in the mirror. Guests had started arriving outside. The nikah ceremony was arranged at home. The bear was tied up in front of Amalika's room. That area was designated for wedding arrangements and separated for guests. Because of this, except for Amalika's parents, no one could enter the room where she was. When Amalika was ready, her heart longed to meet the bear one last time. After all, they had been together since childhood. Thinking this, she stepped out after getting ready and stood in front of the bear. The bear, who had been sitting with his head lowered, immediately stood up upon seeing Amalika and said. Tears welled up in her eyes as she walked toward the bear. In the next moment, she wrapped her arms around the bear's neck. She hugged him tightly and started recounting all the memories they had shared from childhood until now. But when the bear's grip around her began to tighten, she quickly pulled away. Just then, the sound of drums and celebration echoed from the street outside. It seemed the wedding procession had arrived. Hearing the commotion, Amalika rushed back to her room. However, the bear continued to stare at her intently. Outside, the drums were beating loudly as the wedding procession arrived with great fanfare. Meanwhile, the bear began roaring and broke free from his restraints, heading toward the room where Amalika was. Amidst the noise and excitement, no one noticed that the bear had escaped. As soon as the bear entered the room, Amalika was stunned. Her eyes widened in shock. She said to the bear, "Go outside! Why have you come here?" But the bear grabbed Amalika with his claws and pinned her to the ground. Overwhelmed with fear, Amalika began screaming, but the bear kept attacking her. Amidst the loud beats of the drums, Amalika's screams were lost. Only she could understand what she was enduring at that moment. When the drums stopped, Sajid and his wife heard Amalika's screams coming from inside the house. They rushed toward her. When they saw the bear wasn't in his place, alarm bells rang in their minds. Both of them ran toward the room. As soon as they entered, Amalika's mother let out a shriek. Amalika was lying on the bed, covered in blood. Her dress was torn in several places, and her body was riddled with wounds. Seeing the bear attacking Amalika, Sajid flew into a rage and struck the bear with a single powerful blow. The bear cried out in pain and Amalika was immediately taken out, but her body was covered in blood. She was wrapped in a large sheet and taken to the doctor, where her treatment began. Sajid was crying uncontrollably, and the entire community and village were criticizing him. Everyone was questioning why he had kept such a dangerous animal in the house. The family of the groom, who had come to the wedding with great enthusiasm, began to take the wedding procession back when they saw the condition of the bride. Amalika's mother, crying, stopped the procession and said to the groom's family, "It doesn't look good to take the wedding procession back. Though the situation is as it is now, when my daughter regains consciousness, you can marry her. Later, even if the wedding ceremony is delayed, it will be fine." Despite the situation, there was a fear in Amalika's mother's heart, and she said these words. Upon hearing this, Nasir frowned and with anger said, "Do you think I am a fool? Do you not consider me a man of honor? How can I marry a girl who has been seen by everyone, high and low? Don't you see how, when she came out of her room, there was a crowd gathered here? This bear doesn't want me to marry her. How can I marry a girl whom the bear might attack?" He turned his back and walked out. humiliating both Sajid and Amalika in front of the whole community. Amalika's heart was broken, and Sajid and his wife felt the same sorrow of the broken engagement. However, their greatest concern was for their daughter, Amalika. Amalika was still unconscious, and the doctor said that a particular poison from the bear's claws was circulating in her blood. We have never seen such a case before. We are doing everything we can to bring Amalika back to consciousness. If this disease is left untreated, Amalika could remain in a coma forever. Sajid and his wife cried uncontrollably. First, the incident on the day of the wedding had broken them, and now the condition of their daughter was destroying them from the inside. Amalika's mother sat down to pray and begged Allah, "Take my life, but save my daughter. Save her from this dangerous coma-like state. If she lives, she will remain a living corpse in front of me." The doctor was also doing everything he could. Shishuchi, the doctor was also doing everything he could. When Sajid Khan returned home, he still heard the cries of pain coming from the room. He hadn't come home in 2 days and had assumed the bear was dead. When Sajid opened the door, he saw the bear lying on the ground, writhing in pain. It had become very weak, and it didn't have the strength to get up. Ants were crawling on its wounds. Sajid's heart longed to end the bear's life, but then his conscience began to torment him. How could he be so cruel as to kill a living creature in such a merciless way? Sajid Khan began to cry. He looked at the bear and, sobbing, said, "Why did you do this? What was lacking in my love for you? I raised you like my own child. When you were small, I brought you into my home and treated you as my son. Whatever I ate, I shared with you. I always cared for you more than myself. But what did you do? You attacked my own daughter." Sajid Khan, crying, sat beside the bear and said, "Now why don't you tear me apart too, just like you did to my daughter? What was my fault? And what was my daughter's fault? We considered you just like our own. If you were a beast, then let me have it. Whatever comes to my mouth, I will say." The bear groaned in pain as if it was trying to respond to Sajid's words, explaining why it had done what it did. The bear's wound was deep. Sajid Khan began applying ointment to its wounds with the medicine available in the house. As feared, Amalika's condition was worsening in the hospital. The doctors were doing everything they could, but after conducting tests, they concluded that a special kind of virus had already infected Amalika's body. This virus was so dangerous that if Amalika stayed in the hospital, it could spread to the general public. The doctors advised, "It would be better if you take your daughter home or give us permission to administer a lethal injection to her to prevent this disease from spreading." Sajid, hearing this, yelled at the doctors in anger. "You have no right to take my daughter's life. Give her back to me. I'll handle it myself and Allah will decide. My God will heal my daughter." With that, Sajid took his daughter, who was like a living corpse, back home. Amalika's body was still covered with the marks from the bear's claws. The bear, weak and unable to stand for several days, saw Amalika being brought home and, despite its wounds, managed to stand up. It began groaning as it approached Amalika, as though trying to communicate. Amalika, though unconscious and lying on the bed, seemed to have an understanding with the bear, as it had learned some human behavior during its time with them. That night, Sajid and his wife continued praying and begging Allah for Amalika's recovery. Amalika's mother was raising her hands in prayer, cursing the bear for what it had done. As time passed, Amalika's condition continued to deteriorate, and Sajid was desperately trying to apply ointment to the bear's wounds, but they didn't seem to be healing. Then one night, something happened that Sajid Khan would never forget. Amalika was lying in bed, and it was the middle of the night. Sajid and his wife were asleep beside her. Out of nowhere, the bear found the strength to rise and began dragging its chain across the floor, making a dragging sound. It approached the room where Amalika was lying, its eyes filled with hunger and aggression. When the bear entered the room, it stood on its hind legs and looked at Amalika with its ferocious gaze. Amalika had a deep wound on her forehead caused by the bear's claws, and it was that very wound that was preventing her from regaining consciousness. Hearing the noise, Amalika's mother immediately woke up, switched on the room's light, and Sajid also stirred. But the bear, with its menacing demeanor, continued to focus on Amalika, as if something dark and sinister was beginning to unfold. It seemed like the bear was suffocating Amalika, attacking her, but in reality it was dripping some liquid from its mind onto her wounds. Before anything further could happen, Amalika's mother moved forward and ended the bear's life. She might regret this for the rest of her life because what she learned after this incident was beyond belief. The doctors had declared Amalika incurable, which was why they sent her home. But strangely, despite being a beast, the bear had some humanity within it. When it realized Amalika's condition, it started banging its head against the wall in distress. Water began dripping from its mind. As the water droplets fell on Amalika's wounds, they started healing and the disease within her body began to fade away. In the next 24 hours, Amalika regained consciousness. Sajid and his wife were overjoyed when they saw their daughter awake. They rushed her to the doctor, who was also stunned. The doctor exclaimed, "This is a miracle! How could this be possible? The bear was dead!" When the post-mortem was done, it was revealed that the disease Amalika had was cured by the special liquid that came from the bear's mind. After this revelation, Amalika became scared and emotionally shaken. While Sajid was happy that his daughter had regained consciousness, he was saddened by the bear's death. Despite all the pain it had caused him, he had always considered the bear his own child. He thought to himself, "Why did the bear do this? He didn't throw its body away, but buried it in his own yard." What was surprising was that during the post-mortem, the doctors revealed that the bear had eaten a poisonous snake, and the poison was still in its body. If it hadn't been attacked, it would have died from its injuries and the poison in a few days anyway. Many questions were swirling in Sajid's mind when Amalika suddenly began crying. She recalled everything and said, "The attack on me on my wedding day wasn't without reason. When I was sitting on the bed, a snake came into my room. It started approaching me and the bear saw it. The bear attacked the snake to protect me, but I got severely injured in the process. The bear saved me from the snake, swallowed the snake and sacrificed its life for me." The bear had always been loyal to them. When Sajid and his wife realized the truth, they were stunned. His wife, who had killed the bear due to misunderstandings, now regretted it deeply. She slapped her hands against the wall, crying, "But Sajid said, what's the point now? You took an innocent animal's life without thinking. But before it died, that bear gave you a second chance at life." After some time, Amalika was married to a good family, but whenever she remembered the bear, her eyes would fill with tears. The purpose of sharing this story is to highlight how we humans often hurt our relationships based on misunderstandings. We don't take the time to investigate the truth and end up regretting it. Remember, never hurt those close to you based on hearsay, because sometimes what we see with our own eyes isn't the truth. What do you think about this? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and share the video with your friends. Make sure to subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you.